and I know he was very lonesome there. You see, he was used to the people, and so at St. Paul's, he got a heart attack. And anyway, they were taking him by ambulance, and when they went through Lacombe, he died. In the ambulance. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like he had arranged it with God,
Yeah. Well,
yeah, sure.
I'd like to establish on tape just the date, the person that's being interviewed, and the reason and so forth. So I'll just go ahead and make that statement. What is the date?
3rd of June.
Yeah, June 3rd, 1998. This is Tom Akeland for the Lacombe Heritage Center, interviewing Father Hugh Baumann. How do you spell that, Father?
It's Baumann.
And this is for the purpose of producing a commemorative booklet on the Diamond Jubilee of the Lourdes Shrine.
Right.
The first Mass that was offered on June 10th, 1923. I hope to produce the book by the June 21st, which is only a few days from now.
Yeah.
So I'm really operating under a strict deadline.
Sure.
So we're at the St. Joseph Abbey and talking to Father Hugh, who was a student of Father Francis Ballet. Is that correct?
Well, he was the one that got me into the seminary here. See, I was living in New Orleans, and I graduated from what we call grammar school in those days, and I was looking for a place to go to high school. I'd gotten a scholarship to Jesuit, but we went too late to claim it, so they told us they were sorry, and that was in 1936. I was 12 years old, and so my folks were very upset over losing a scholarship, and and the Archbishop of New Orleans at that time forbade the Catholics to send their children to public school under pain of the priests were instructed not to give them absolution and confession if they, sounds strange, but it really, so my folks were law-abiding. They didn't know what to do, you see, and they didn't have enough money to pay my way to the Jesuits. So, they were faced with the prospect of violating the Archbishop's wishes. And so what they did, they sent me to Slidell, where we had relatives, and where Father Ballet was pastor.
What year was that?
That was 1930. 1930. So I went to Slidell, and I had been an altar boy all the time in New Orleans, and so I went over to the church and asked Father if I could serve his Mass. And I really knew my prayers, because the old German priest in New Orleans, he held a whip over you. You learned them either or, And so, anyway, so Father was really impressed with my Latin prayers. And so he invited me to go with him on his little Model T to make his rounds, visiting the sick. And because there were no hospitals, Slidell didn't have a hospital. No, none of us. I think think there was something in Bogalusa, but we were out in the wilderness then. And anyway, so he took me with him to Lacombe and Pearl River, and all the places where there were little chapels, you see. And I kind of helped him, and we'd eat. The people would always give us meals. It was like a real missionary, you know. Mm-hmm. And then one day he said to me, "Well, look, today we're going to my home." And I said, "Well, I thought your home was Slidell at the rectory." And he said, "Oh no," he said, "my home is up near Covington. It's called St. Joseph's Abbey." That was news to me, you know. So we came up, and actually he told me later that he brought me up on purpose because he thought I had a vocation to the priesthood. And so he brought me here, and the place was beautiful. And, well, before the day was over, they had given me literature and everything about St. Joseph's Abbey, Benedictine order. And then they told me, I told them, I said, my folks couldn't afford to send me to a boarding school, which seminary was. And then they said, well, if you're willing to work, cut grass, and wash dishes, we'll call it a deal. And so I went back to New Orleans and told my folks that everything was ready for me to come to high school. And they didn't believe me. So I had to get Father Ballet to come to the city to visit my family and tell them. And he said, what he said is right. School's going to open September the 15th. And here's a catalog, certain things you've got to get, clothes, and so forth. So September the 15th, he brought me here with some of my relatives, and I started the seminary. And, well, that was September 1930, and I'm a priest now 57 years, and it was all due to Father Ballet. That all I can say was that looking back, it looked like the finger of God. All those, my folks in Slidell wouldn't have been living there had not my cousin developed tuberculosis, and this was healthy, ozone air, you know. So I went over there, you see, to stay with them, and that's where I met Father. So I came into his life. He died in 1940, so I only knew him, you see, 10 years, but they were very important 10 years. So, but he was, by that time, pastor of Slidell, and a real missionary. He lived a hard life. People would give him food on the road. They didn't give him anything. It was all right. They did fine. And in any kind of weather, he went. See. So, and then I found out, you see, all about him as I got to know him. About, you know, he of course was French, and he used to call me garçon, you know, boy, or et là-bas, you know.
Et là-bas?
Yeah.
And what did that mean?
Hi there.
Yeah, okay. See, even today,
Yeah.
et là-bas means, hey, how you doing?
How you doing?
Or, you know,
Yeah.
how you doing over there? Or, yeah.
And So he spoke fluent French naturally. But his see, I found out both from talking to him and later from records that I found that he he was born in 1875 in France. I have a little booklet here. I'll give you.
Yeah, I have that.
You have that?
Well,
Yeah.
I have a lot of
Okay.
printed information,
Right.
but I don't want to just compile a lot of facts.
Okay.
I'm trying to write it more or less from Father Ballet's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I would like to ask, because I know, back in the 1930s, that was in the midst of the Depression.
Yeah.
And Louisiana was in bad shape
Yeah.
overall. And in talking to some of the old people over here, St. Tammany Parish was in even worse shape.
Okay.
So I know that the people had to really give from their hearts when they gave the donation. I know they probably couldn't give any money, but the little bit of food that they were able to share with them was very important.
Yeah, well, you're right, because I remember one day he came to see me when I was in the seminary here, and he had his valise, and he said, well, I'll give you a little money, and he said, I'll give you Sunday's collection, and it was all, there was no paper money, it was just change, and not terribly much. He gave it all to me, you see, and that's how he was. He was very, very generous. But see, when he took me on the road with him, like for instance, we would get up as far as Mandeville, and his one thing that he loved to do, his one concession to pleasure, he loved swimming. So we would put on our bathing suits, and looking back on it now, it seems to me that we went swimming somewhere in the area where the causeway is now, because it wasn't in Mandeville itself. It was a little bit to the west, and we'd put on our suits in the weeds on the shore, and we'd go in swimming, and he loved swimming. In fact, Slidell, he didn't have much in the ice box, but he built a little pool about the size of this room, right in the back of the rectory, where he could walk from the back porch into the little pool. Because the Louisiana heat really got him, you see. And so we used to go swimming in there too, you see. It was artesian water, right, and right next to the big water tank, that had Slidell written on it. And but it was things like that. I mean, he, the swimming, and then another time, he, that we'll forget this, we passed him through Lacombe, and in front of the church, there's still a crucifix out in the yard, and it's this peculiar type of crucifix that he liked, because he had a couple put in Slidell, and there's one in Lacombe, and there's one out by the little chapel, too. At least they used to be.
Still there.
And well, anyway, we got to Lacombe about noon, and for once we didn't stop at anybody's house, so he said, well, we got to get some lunch. So there was right on the highway, and that store was there for a long, long time. We went and got a loaf of French bread and a wad of cheese, American cheese, and then we went and sat right by the crucifix under an oak tree at the corner. Then he said, "Oh, garçon, we have to have something to drink." So he said, "Come with me." So we went over to church. I was wondering, what a funny place to go, And we went to the back of the church, up the stairs to the choir loft, where the bell was. And there was a crowbar on the wall, and he took it and he pried open one of the planks, and the floor was lined with mass wine, you see. And this was Prohibition, now don't forget. Prohibition was repealed in 1933. This was 1930. So he got a bottle of wine, and well, you're really not supposed to drink mass wine with meals, but it's no sin, but I mean, so we, there, out in the open, there we were drinking. If a policeman had come by, we could have been arrested.
It sounds like a man after my own heart.
Well, that was that was another thing, too. That was my first time I drank wine. Mm-hmm. Later on, when I told my folks, they said, he did what? It was things like that I remember. And he was very, he was roughly about the age of my father. And so he was a father figure. My father had died when I was 18 months old, so I didn't know him. And maybe that's why I took to father so quickly, But he was very kind, and but he was, make no mistake, father was a builder too. He'd make up his mind to do something, he would get it done, you see. And so I was there at the little rectory in Slidell, and in his little Model T, we did a lot of talking, and like I say, he was a prime figure in my becoming a priest.
What moved you? Do you recall? I mean, at any particular moment that you decided? Because really, your original intent was to come to school. It wasn't to be a priest, right? It was to get an education in high school.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, can you remember about what age you were and what sort of motivated you? And obviously, the influence that Father Ballet had upon you was prime motivation.
Yeah.
But, I've heard that, being Catholic myself, that the vocation is something that is sort of like an inspiration that comes to you.
Yeah, well, I went in New Orleans. I belonged to Mater Della Rosa Parish. It's on Carrollton Avenue. And they had nuns there, Benedictine nuns, whose mother house was in Covington. I didn't know that, but these sisters taught me in elementary school. And I remember every year, right before school ended, the sister would say, "How many girls want to be nuns? Put your hand up." How many boys want to be priests? And my hand would go up, but I honestly, I didn't know why. It just went up. And so, but then when I well, you know, I suppose in my mind I figured, well, God didn't want me to be a priest because the way my life was shaping up. And then too, you see, the other thing was my folks. I remember when Father came, he came to my home in New Orleans to see my people, to tell them, you know, that everything I said was true. And they said to him, well, priests have to be special people, and he isn't me, which I agreed with, you see. I thought I was ordinary, but... and then Father said, well, I'm not special. That's what he told. And they were kind of mildly shocked, you know, that... and then he said, I think if you ask priests that question, just about all of them will say the same thing. I'm not special, you see. So anyway, and my mother was not in New Orleans. She was out west at the time. Mother was, at that time in her life, she had wandered away from the church. And so I was staying with her sister, my aunt, and her family. And they were real good Catholics. And so anyway, so when Father came that day and ate dinner with them and all, and confirmed everything, then it was really amusing. Then it was decided I'm going to seminary. Well, the attitude towards me changed. My aunt stopped bawling me out for anything. You know, I was kind of special. Put it that way. That was all right with me, though. You know, but my mother, though, you see, mother came back just at that time, and she thought the family had talked me into being. Mm-hmm. And so she did not give her consent. But I went anyway, and later, my mother was a good woman, and she started going back to church, and then at my ordination, she said, I'm so happy you're a priest.
Was Father Francis present at your ordination?
No, I was ordained in 1941.
Oh,
and he died in 1940.
Well, I remember reading that his mother had died 3 months before his ordination.
Right.
And another thing I need to ask you about, if he had ever told you about his experience at Lourdes in France, because in one of the documents that I read, it stated that he had had a miraculous or healing experience.
Oh.
And I was wondering if he had ever
No.
spoke with you about that.
No, that's the first time I've ever
Yeah.
You see, he had been in Europe at the age of 18. He had entered the Trappists there.
Mm-hmm.
The Trappists are the strictest monastic order. And I remember he did tell me that, see, every monastery has some kind of work that it does. Some bake bread and sell bread, you know, to make enough money to sustain themselves. Well, his monastery in France made chocolate. See, and I was a kid when he told me that, and I thought, you mean you left there?
Had a good thing going.
But the you know, now that you said that, though, you see, every place, I mean, Lourdes was foremost in his life. He had a special devotion to Our Lady of Lourdes. That I know, and it could well be, see that.
Was the place where he was born near Lourdes, to your knowledge?
It's on the map. It says he was born in well, the province of Ardèche, and I looked it up, and it's about 100 miles from Lourdes. Not terribly far.
Yeah.
But, you know, and
Did he speak about his birthplace, the old country?
no, he no, it was strange. He didn't.
How about his desire to become a missionary? Because I know that that's why he left the Trappist order, because he had this calling to become a missionary in America. And
Yes.
did he ever speak about why America, or did he choose Louisiana, or was he sent here?
No, he chose it. And he had evidently, you see, there is a book that the order puts out, and you can find where any monastery is, you know, and who's who there, and that's probably what he did. He looked up that. And with so many of our members here who were from Europe, we used to advertise in a newspaper. You know, are you interested in being a priest or a brother at St. Joseph's Abbey, St. Benedict, Louisiana? And more than one, well, I worked especially with the brothers here who, you know, didn't become priests. They were from Germany. And there were three of them that told me, because I asked them, I was interested, you know, how did you find out about our place here? And two of them told me that they were in a beer parlor in Germany. And beer parlors were respectable then, so they weren't, but they had a newspaper there, and it had, do you wish to serve God as a brother? Contact Abbot Paul. And they did. And he took care of the arrangements, you see. So it could well be that he saw something about our monastery. Of course, I think one of the things was that so much French was spoken here, you see. I mean,
That's true.
yeah.
That would make sense.
And in fact, when he arrived here, they assigned him to teach French in a seminary, which he did for about 3 or 4 years, you see. And then down in Lacombe, where they sent him at first, or either both there and at Baumann in Slidell, there was a lot of French spoken.
Yeah.
And so maybe that has something to do with it, you see. But
But he lived here, even though he was a pastor in Slidell. There was no residence in Slidell where he
yeah,
lived?
see that they used to have a train that came from New Orleans through Slidell,
Right.
to Mandeville, Beta Springs, Covington, and then it went past here, just about a mile and a half. It went up to Folsom, and that's where the end of the line was, you see. So Father Ballet used to take that train to go to Slidell or you know, Lacombe until he got his little Model T. But before that, he used some kind of a motorcycle.
Right. How did he acquire these? Was it a donation, or did he have to purchase them?
He had to purchase them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Because I didn't at that time, you know, it didn't occur to me.
Right. I mean,
Yes, you know,
yeah.
a priest has a car, you know, and
Right.
New Orleans they did. And in fact, I never saw him use his little motorcycle. I think he stopped that around 1920. But when I met him in Slidell, he had the little car, and it could, you know, it could come here. I mean, it looked like it was about to die, you know, any moment, but he always managed to make it here. And
Did he ever tell you about his experiences in Lacombe when he was building the Lourdes shrine there?
it was evident from being with him that he loved people, and that he loved the idea of being a missionary. And you see, I found out, like for instance, Father Odolo, who was a little bit younger than Father Ballet, who was from Germany, that some of these priests that came here thought that the Indians behind pine trees were tomahawks. Father Odolo thought that. You see, he was going to come and convert the Indians. And he was so disappointed when he arrived here and found that you know, that the Indians were mostly gone. Yeah. And but I never heard Father Francis say that, though. You know, that he was expecting Indians. But down in Lacombe, they had quite a few, and then of course French was spoken. What's his name, Père Rupin, you know, who was from there. One of the things that came across to me when I was a boy with him, when he spoke English, it was broken English, but you could always understand him. He seemed to be one person, and when he spoke French, he was another one. French, I mean, he spoke beautiful French. I didn't know French then, but I had 5 years of it, college here, and I realized, you see, that he really knew French, and he wasn't when he spoke like that, you would have expected to see a bishop or something talking that way.
Was he an educated person?
Yes, he was, and nothing put on. Just you know, just no pretense.
What types of literature? I mean, was he well read? Did he have any preferences in that?
He came across to me as being well read, you see, and he, I mean, he could have, you know, gone to any big parish in New Orleans and taken care of it very easily, you see, but his interest wasn't there for that, you see, and he was very happy at little out-of-the-way hidden places, like Slidell, there, Montfaucon, and Lacombe, and
How many churches did he? And I understand he built schools and churches.
Yeah.
Do you know approximately?
yeah, he built the church in Lacombe. church right on the bayou, facing the bayou, very picturesque, under big oak trees with a lot of gray moss, you know, and because my family would go to mass there frequently, and you'd have to cross the bayou in a canoe, in a skiff to get to mass, you see, and that was fun, you know, as a boy, it was a lot of fun. He built built a church in Lacombe, in Bayou Lacombe, and a church in Slidell.
So three churches, and then he started. I know you'd mentioned he built a pool in Slidell. He also built one at Lourdes Shrine in Lacombe.
Oh, did he?
That's still there.
Yeah.
It's not used, of course, but that's where the pump was. We still have the old pump.
Yeah.
What do they call it? A pistol pump.
Yeah.
And it would pump that water up.
Yes. Well, I met him, you see, just a couple of years after he had built the little chapel, but he took me there, though, you see, and
When he was no longer serving it, right? Because he was transferred to Slidell in 1929.
he was.
So you met him in 1930. So I think it was Father Joseph Fortenay that was the pastor of Sacred Heart in Lacombe and of the Lourdes Shrine there.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out. See, Father Joseph he taught in school here too, and he was prefect, in charge of the boys. So when I came in 1930, he was my superior, Father Joseph. And then in about 1933, he started going somewhere on weekends, and it was probably Lacombe. But he'd come back, and then at some point, he was made pastor. So you're right, you see. I was wondering, I'm glad you mentioned that, you see, because...
And you've been here then since 1930?
Yes.
And you're a Benedictine?
Yes, I'm...
Missionary or?
No, well, we're a Benedictine monk, a priest.
Okay.
Some in the community are not priests by their own choice.
I see.
And they're non-ordained, we call them. And I started here, and then we had vacation, and I'd go home for vacation when I was in school here. But in 1935, I entered the monastery, and I've been here. This has been my home since then.
You teach?
I did for about 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
I taught in college here,
Nice.
and which was real nice. You know, they when you teach in the seminary, you see the boys become priests, and some of them bishops. You see, and there were 3 or 4 bishops that I taught who went through the mill, you know, like everybody else. And yeah, so it was it was gratifying.
Yeah. I remember I came here. I was at St. Stanislaus in the Gulf Coast. We used to come here
Yeah.
for retreats and picnics.
Yeah.
You know, just
Oh yeah.
I don't remember the exact circumstances, but I can remember when the priest was painting the murals.
Right.
Around
Gregory. Yeah. Yeah. That's
So I may have, you were here then.
Yeah.
'Cause this was in the 1940s.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. Yeah. And then perhaps maybe you won't find this written any place, and maybe it shouldn't be written. You see, in 19 Archbishop Rummel became Archbishop of New Orleans in 1935. And then he started making what he called his visitations. He would visit every parish, and the pastor would have to show him the finances, financial reporting, this, that, and the other. Kind of like an examination of conscience, you know. And when he came to Slidell, well, Father Ballet, he had all his figures up here, not in any books. Well, Archbishop Rummel, well, the abbot told me this. Our abbot was abbot then. The Archbishop told the abbot that Father Ballet would have to be removed because he didn't feel that he was a good priest and everything, but he just wasn't modern enough with the methods of parish, this, that, and the other. And when I heard that, I knew there was going to be trouble. I mean, I knew. So, so what the abbot did, the abbot had a good heart. So he told Father Ballet, you want to go to France on a visit? So he treated him to well, it was those days you went by boat, and so you stayed longer. And so Father was able to go back home and whatever there was of home then. And then he came back. Well, the abbot told him he was sorry, but that he couldn't reappoint him to Slidell. And so he appointed him chaplain of St. Paul's College in Covington. Well, in 1938, 39, in those days they had a lot of French Christian brothers, you see, and the Vatican II hadn't happened yet, and they were very strict. And I used to go say Mass frequently there. We'd take turns, say the daily Mass for the boys, for the brothers, and now and then for the boys on Sunday. And the chaplain, according to the brothers' rule, was not supposed to talk to the brothers. Say, eat with them, or just say, let's go for a walk or something.
They couldn't fraternize
Couldn't
at all?
fraternize. And he couldn't fraternize with the boys, except to hear their confessions and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Father Ballet didn't have an automobile. And
They took his automobile?
yeah, whatever happened to it,
Yeah.
Father Lawrence Baumann, who succeeded him, Slidell, he probably inherited it. That's the way.
Yeah.
And so Father Ballet, as soon as I heard that, as soon as I saw that, I said, that's going to kill him.
Yeah.
Because, Father was, he liked people, he liked
Yeah.
young people and everything. And it did. It did kill him.
Yeah, because he died in 1994.
And I think really, that was kind of I don't want to be super emotional, but I think he kind of died of a broken heart.
That's a shame.
But that hasn't been put down in writing, for obvious reasons.
Well, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I won't do that.
But it's good to know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to know it. And
yeah, I wondered because 65, well, there are men that do die at 65, whether either congenital or because of the life they led, but generally a healthy man, and I'm sure Father Ballet, yeah, if he was a swimmer and he walked a lot, he rode bicycle, so he was probably pretty healthy. So, I can write it as alluding to something that was a causative factor in his death.
And then, having gone to Europe and seen what was left of his family, and because this was right before the war hit. Germany had invaded Poland, and
right, 39.
Yeah. So he just did get his visit in.
Yeah.
Now that you think of it, but I'm sure that seeing all the old places again, and he was, I saw Father cry different times. He was very. Well, you see, he was when they brought me to the seminary to start here. Well, Mr. Driscoll, my cousin, and Mrs. Driscoll, and Father Ballet, and me. You see, we all came together. And my cousin in Slidell respected Father Ballet very highly. You see, but in those days, I suppose, you see, the monastery didn't. Not like now. I think people kind of felt, that the monastery would prefer if you didn't come.
But he was buried here. I mean, he's buried
buried
on the ground.
buried down,
Right.
Buried.
I'd like to get a picture.
Yeah, he's out there, and
but I find that very strange with all the people who tell me, how much they loved him,
yeah.
that they weren't allowed, or just not encouraged.
Well, certainly it wasn't a question at all of not being allowed. It was one of those things in those days where, okay, you worked at Slidell and all, but you live here, and they were strict. They were very strict in those days, and there was some things we all agreed, all of us who went through it, that some of it was really against good manners and
Common sense.
common sense.
Yeah, common decency.
Common
courtesy.
decency. It was this overemphasis on keeping the world away from you.
Yeah.
You see, and
But this was not a cloistered
no,
monastery
it wasn't
by
a
any
cloister.
means.
No, you see, we had no cloistered places that have walls around. You see,
Yeah.
like monasteries in Europe. You see, but
Well, that's strange.
and I
find
don't think
that very
I didn't see any Christian brothers there in the cemetery. It was only my cousin standing alone there. You see, and so with Vatican II, then things started. A lot of good things started.
Yeah. I was in the 60s, right?
Yeah, 65 when it was finished, and it made the monks, well, for one thing, today monks don't think they're the only holy people in the world anymore.
Yeah.
Any priest who hears confessions knows that there are many many, many people outside who are far holier than he is. A lot of good people who are some very often heroic. You see, and thank God for the confessional, because it keeps you keeps you balanced. You know.
Yeah.
You see, and so but yeah, those are some of the painful. You know, you have to heal your memories, and things like that. You know, you have to let God come in too, and say, you know, Lord, why did we act that way?
Well, I had to reconcile a lot of what I went through as a boarder in boarding school at St. Stanislaus.
Right.
Because there was a lot of cruelty, a lot of things that did not seem to be addressed by the Catholic Church, nor appropriate.
That's right.
For the church. But then again, remember, the church is a human, you know, so
Yeah.
it's just like anything else, I suppose. We have to accommodate ourselves to them.
Back when I was younger, monasteries are often places where the assistant priests, parish priests, say who were alcoholics, would be sent to do penance. You see, and again, like you just said, you see the cruelty that the church was capable of and not realizing it half the time. You see, for instance, the usual rule was that if a priest became an alcoholic and had to leave the parish, you see, I mean, you know, he had to go somewhere to get hold of himself. Well, they didn't have these places where you go and dry out, so to speak. But they sent him to monasteries, you see, where they were supposed to then do penance, and they'd be miles away, hundreds of miles away from everybody they knew, and poor devils, often they would succumb, and one day they'd find them drunk again, you see. And there was no sympathy for them, you see. And looking back on, good God, you know, that's why this thing with the Jews. You see, I can see where there were without doubt things done to the Jews by the church. You see, it's the human side of the church.
Well, I'm a historian and part Indian, and I've done a lot of research on the Maya down in Central America and Mexico, and what the Spanish Franciscan priests did to those people was just because it was in the midst of the Inquisition.
Correct.
And you know, it's a very low ebb in the Catholic Church. You know, what they did.
Well, the present Pope, you see, what he's saying makes a lot of. He said, well, he told the Jews that we and they have to go through a healing of memories. You see, and first, you know, for the church to admit, you see that the church did some things that weren't too nice.
Yeah.
You see,
That's what they did.
yeah. But to admit it, and to admit it to the Jews, and they on their part, you know, being human, sometimes they probably did things that, but to go through that mutual healing of memories, you see. But I know I would go one of them, we went crabbing in the lake at Mandeville, and he was telling me, he said, you know, if a crab ever gets a hold of it, just keep calm and then very calmly put your hand on the ground and the crab will let go. And so we were crabbing, and all of a sudden I made a loud noise. There he was over there. And I went over to him and I said, very calmly, put your crab down. But he was from Cleveland, I think.
Yeah.
And it was maybe a good thing that the crab did grabbing. We had a big time, you know. But it's that's the human side, you see. And Father Ballet, though, to my knowledge, he never had any, you know, better than thou.
Mm-hmm.
He was.
He administered to all of the people on an equal basis.
He did. And the people knew that he was a good priest.
Well, you know, maybe you don't have any knowledge of this, but back in those days, of course, segregation was, you know, a big problem for individuals as well as collectively. So, do you know how he would, if there was any problems with that?
I never saw him. Never saw him. But you're right. When I was a young priest, go to Madisonville. In one block, they had the white church on one corner, the black church on the other corner, the rectory in the middle, a white school at this corner, black school at this corner, a white convent here and a black convent there, all on one block.
Is it?
And
but the church had to exist within the socio-economic structure
That's right.
of the society. So I suppose, you know, that was difficult for an individual priest or, you know, missionary to deal with. And I was just,
sure.
you know, I'm curious about things like
Yeah.
that, because to me that, like I say, I'm trying to develop a perspective from Father Francis's, you know,
Yeah.
background.
So Father Francis was, I mean, I don't think he had a drop of racist blood in him. And then down in Madisonville, eventually, the Archbishop assigned a priest there with orders to build a new church and then tear everything else down. The rectory's still there, you see, but I mean, and I remember I used to, when I went Saturday evening for confessions, the pastor told me, you know, look, alternate. Here are a few in the white church and go over and here are a few in the black church, you see. So you'd be, and I look back now and I say, oh, you know, was all that true, you know?
Well, I remember when Archbishop Hannon, you know, desegregated basically,
Yeah.
you know,
Right,
the
it's,
Catholic Church.
But
There was a lot of opposition to that.
but I prayed to Father Ballet. I found that I long ago stopped praying for him.
Mm-hmm.
I prayed to him.
That makes sense. Well, let me see some of your pictures.
Yeah,
you
well,
wanna
these
come
are.
over here, Bitch?
See what these are little exhibits that we've made for the community with a little explanation of their lives, you see.
Uh-huh.
And
Oh, yeah, I have this,
Uh-huh.
but I don't have this picture. Well, he was sort of a dapper-looking fellow, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Where is this? I see the bananas.
That was after he was here. That's not in
Yeah.
France. But in his later years, he got heavier physically.
Mm-hmm.
But in the early years, he was these are some.
Yeah, these I have.
Yeah, the paper, right.
I don't have, see, I don't have the photographs. And I have a copy of this, but the writing is so indistinct,
Yes.
I couldn't make it out.
Right. The let's see,
And this is, you say this was inside the
that's Slidell. That
of this church in Slidell.
I said my first mass at this altar.
Mm-hmm. Was that a wooden church?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's it was moved a few blocks, and it's now a black, either Baptist or Methodist church.
Oh, but it's still there.
It's still there.
Where is it? Do you know offhand?
I wouldn't know the street, but I think if you go down Third Street, or what is it, Sergeant?
Sergeant Alfred?
Yeah. If you go down to the right, it's a block over. You're able to see the, and they also moved the rectory too. The rectory's right by the church.
And this was a Sacred Heart in Lacombe?
Yes.
Now this was after the 1915 hurricane?
Yes.
Okay, so this was after it was rebuilt.
After it was rebuilt. As far as I know. Because I said mass there, you see. This is France. And Lourdes. And he spent, that name comes up in his life, but just what, I don't know. And this is the Slidell Cemetery.
Oh, yeah.
And somewhere in there he has that crucifix, the same kind that's at Lacombe. You see, that's a little chapel.
Do you know what year this was?
I'd be guessing, but yeah, he's just got this fence. That's pretty early. I would say that's between 1923 and 1930.
Yeah. Because I'm going to have to find out when it was stucco. Because you can see it was a frame construction.
Yes.
And then this was his
Right.
hometown. I mean, his home
That I
province.
don't know. You see, but
Just in France.
But evidently, when he went to France, he brought these pictures back.
You mean after in the 30s?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, towards the end there, you see.
Yeah. So it looked like it's probably wine country, huh?
Yes, very definitely. And that's his handwriting. That's a card to one of his relatives. And I think, yeah, I think that's La Lourdes, the church that we saw just now. This is Lourdes.
Who's
And
this
that's
lady?
a relative. I don't know who it is.
He had 3 sisters that were nuns, I
Nuns, yeah.
understand. Yeah, these probably were his family.
Right? Oh, yeah.
It looks like it. These are glued on. That's a shame. He probably wrote on the back. So, sure did.
That's remarkable, isn't it? Architecture.
That's beautiful. Gosh, I wonder where that is.
There's a little church on the top of a little.
Yeah.
That's something.
Yeah. One missing there.
This is the
That's St. Genevieve?
St. Genevieve.
Yeah. Now that's the one that's still there, or this
No.
was
That's see, this is facing the bayou.
facing the bayou?
The
Yeah.
other one, the new church, faces the road.
Road, yeah.
Yeah.
Was this the one built by Kuzan?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
the one. I said mass in there.
Well, you did.
Yeah.
Well, it's not there anymore.
No, but it was, you see, when, at the time that they built the new church,
Uh-huh.
well, they built a little model in brick of this, which faces, it's in the same
Yeah.
place.
Okay, that's the one I've seen.
Yeah.
That's the one. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So what they demolished this
Yeah.
and then rebuilt it just a little more.
I think Father Timothy or Father Joseph, one of the two. And that's the interior, you see. Of
Right.
it.
Of Lourdes Shrine.
Yeah.
And that's the one inside.
Father's invited me to celebrate the Mass.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, we're
But I-
looking forward to that.
but we've been playing tag, or what you call, we can't connect on the phone.
Phone Dave, yeah.
Well,
Oh.
he went to France. He's on vacation.
Oh, is he?
I think he's,
Was he supposed to be back this week?
yeah, I think he's
Uh-huh.
due back shortly. I don't know. I haven't seen him in a
Mhm.
couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And he was going to Lourdes.
Ah.
Because
okay.
see, what I want to do for the Diamond Jubilee, I've created a design with a diamond and a cross in the center with fleur de lis
Good.
on it, and then Our Lady of Lourdes, Diamond Jubilee around the top, and then at the bottom, 1923, 1998, and we're going to etch them on bottles and offer them, because people come over with plastic jugs, you
Yeah,
know,
I
and things,
see.
and
I
we'll offer them for sale, because we've got to do something to have a sustaining
That's right.
revenue coming
Okay.
in to
Okay.
keep the chapel from falling
Right.
back into disrepair
Yeah.
again. We need something permanent. And hopefully that'll be one
Good
thing that we're
idea.
going to do. And tomorrow I'm going into New Orleans. Father Paul, who was the pastor before Father Bob,
Yeah. Yeah.
has a painting that my neighbor did of the shrine, and we want to make posters out of
That's
that
nice.
also.
That's nice.
Yeah. Would you put your trust in me to let me have these pictures reproduced?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll take good care of them.
I'm trusting.
Okay. Because I know these are probably
Oh,
very
right.
precious, because they're,
Yes.
the only ones in existence, I'm sure.
Yeah, they.
So I will make copies of them.
Yeah, well,
And,
that's
Definitely
Sure.
use them in the book, reproduce
sure
them.
you can.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Paul. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
sure. We
Yes, indeed.
and I wish you well with the and
Is there anything else that you've got that
well, let's see.
would be of an interest to an old
These-
historian?
These are more. These are.
Yeah,
I think
those.
you've seen
Yeah, I have those.
Oh, this
there's,
is-
there's
yeah.
a picture I've never seen.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it's oh yeah, that he wrote this uh, July the 1st, 1915. And my dear Daniel is one of the monks here, Daniel Brew. And so this was, Daniel became Father Finton, Fintan, you see. So this was just a little, and it's from one of the parishes. It's 1915.
Yeah, he came here in 1913.
13, yeah.
So that was just a couple
Right.
of years after.
Right.
He came in August.
August.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Because that's how I'm starting the book off, is him getting off the train
Yeah.
and going to Bayou Lacombe.
Right.
Because he had never seen it. And I'm just wondering, you know, if he had to walk 3 miles down this old dusty road
Yeah.
in the heat of August,
Yeah.
and he probably was dressed in the black.
He was.
I mean, you know, that had to be awfully hot. I don't know how you can stand it.
I never saw Father.
Have seen it?
I never saw him, and I was with him in that little Model T. In hot summer, he'd be in shirt sleeves, but it'd be a clerical shirt though, and a collar.
Right.
Yeah, you see.
Received your appreciated letter. I was to Covington. Looks like Reverend Gerald was in retreat.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Reverend Mann or Mine is here something in the last week. I wish you a happy vacation. And we play as prayers, please. And as ever, yours respectfully. Oh, what is OSB?
That's it's the Order of Saint Benedict.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like the Jesuits are SJ,
yeah.
and the Dominicans are OP. The Order of Preachers, well, with Order
I
of Saint
see.
Benedict.
Yeah, he was a cool looking dude.
He, I remember when he put his glasses on, which he usually did when he was saying Mass, it would make him look a little stern,
Mm-hmm.
you see. And he's got the choir cloak on there too, you see. And
Wonder where this Camp. Oh, Hygiene. Tuberculosis.
I never did locate where, find out where that was located, you know.
I know where Camp Hygiene is. I don't know this particular spot, but yeah, it was on some of the old maps. I don't think the new maps have it.
Off 190.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this is another shot I've never seen.
Yeah. There's his.
Oh, this is his funeral.
Yeah.
Now, 65 is
Young.
kind of young, you know, for him to have died. So your premise that he died of a broken heart could probably be true.
This is out in the woods here. You know, there was benches in the wood, and this is Father Alphonse. They were roughly about the same age.
Oh, that's Father Ballet?
That's Father Malay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, now I see it. My eyes are getting weaker in these glasses. Yeah, Alphonse Beck?
Alphonse Bach. B-O-C-K.
B-O-C-K.
Yeah, he was German.
Uh-huh.
Bach.
Oh, yeah, shortly after his arrival, 1913. Oh, boy, this is neat. I'm
Yeah.
I'm sure glad that you were able to meet with me today, Father.
Sure. Let's see, there, these have the pictures that you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Right.
Um, and, yeah, that,
Yeah. Yeah, that was in that little booklet.
yeah, little booklet, right. And, yeah, these are, you have all of this.
Yeah, almost anything that was in the newspaper or which has
Yeah.
already been printed,
Right.
I have.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's why it's so invaluable to be able to talk to you personally and to,
Sure.
you know, get stuff like that, because these have never been printed.
That's
to
right,
my
yeah.
knowledge, you know.
These are, I don't know what happened here. But, yeah, this didn't come off.
Oh, yeah, it's just a Xerox.
Yeah,
huh?
Xerox thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really all, you know, all that I have.
Okay,
Really.
well, I certainly appreciate you trusting them to me, and I assure you
Sure.
I'll take excellent care of them and get them back to you just as
Yeah.
soon as possible.
These
But,
are other priests, you see, brothers and priests.
What, you said you had an exhibition? An exhibit?
Here, you see, for the younger members of the Abbey,
I see.
to have a picture and then tell them something about their life, what they did, you know, and it's a very good thing.
Oh, yeah,
For the,
definitely.
for the history of the place, and you know, and to, well, we had our Golden Jubilee as an Abbey, 1990.
Mm-hmm.
And so that whole year, 1990 and 91, we spread it out and celebrated kind of here and there during the whole year, because you couldn't do everything at once. And one of the things we did, see, when we moved here, I say moved here, we were first located over on, at what is called Rosaryville today. It's right outside of not Hammond, but what's the other little town?
Ponchatoula?
Ponchatoula.
Yeah, I know, I've seen.
That's where in 1890, we came there, built a monastery complete, and we had more property than we have here. We had 2,000 acres. But, and that was in 1890. And so we had a seminary, and then because of the malarial, a lot of mosquitoes, and I think they didn't know then that mosquitoes brought malaria. I think
That's right. It wasn't until they dug the Panama Canal, and you know, that was what, 1913, something around
Something
there,
like
they
that.
finally
I think
realized
that Walter Reed Hospital in Washington.
Yeah.
Walter Reed gave his life. He wanted to prove that malaria came from mosquitoes and so
Right.
forth, and he died, you see,
Yeah.
as a result of it. Anyway, so they wanted to get away from that, so they moved here, and everything was sent by boat from the other monastery. There was the Tickfall River, came down to Lake Maurepas, and then they went through the pass and went up the Chifunka River to the Bogfalaya, and then to Columbia Street in Covington. You see, that was back in 1902. They moved here. So in 1990, we made that trip. All the community went, and a friend of ours had a load big enough to hold everybody, and we duplicated the trip.
That was cool.
Oh, you talk
Yeah,
about
that was nice.
talk about it was an eerie feeling, you know,
Yeah.
but you felt like history was living then.
Yeah.
Then when we came here in 1902, and we built a complete monastery down about 2 blocks. There were 5 buildings made out of, well, pine, you know. The wood didn't have enough time to age, and in an hour, the whole place was burned down to the ground, 1907. So and it went to library, everything, and they didn't even have any prayer books, to say the prayers with. And so then they had a meeting around the fire to decide, should we go back to Indiana, or should we start over? And so they said, we're going to start over. So then they built this building.
Mm-hmm.
But
This building was the first?
yeah,
This building?
1908. But what happened though was that there's what's the name of the brewery in New Orleans? Jackson.
Yes.
Well, the Faubaca family. Well, when the Abbey burned, and we didn't know who we owed or who owed us. Mr. Faubaca, who was a Catholic, he came and got the abbot, old Abbot Paul, and he said, look, I'm going to take you to New Orleans and introduce you to my friends. And I think that'll make a difference. So he did, and Abbot Paul was able to get credit for, everything till we could start paying things back. So we built this. And then, about 10 years ago, I was saying Mass in Slidell at St. Genevieve's. And after Mass, this young man comes up and says, you from the Abbey? I said, yes. He said, my grandfather was Mr. Faubaca. Do you all know anything about him? I said, yeah. We know something. You saved our lives, And he said, we heard something in the family, but I never got the story straight. But Mr. Faubaca knew everyone in the city, and so Abbot Paul had, we could have things on credit until we got on our feet, you see. So it was really, but you see, we started in 1890 from an abbey in Indiana, and the Archbishop of New Orleans was Dutch. He was Jansen, Archbishop Francis Jansen. He was from Holland, but he was an American though. He had come over, and he was convinced that we had to have native vocations. Because we were getting all our priests from France, you see. Mm-hmm. And so he got us to start the seminary in 1890. And, well, unfortunately, he died, Archbishop, in 1898. So we had to close the seminary, because the French clergy were kind of hostile. It was believed, really, that ordinary American boys could not be priests, according to the French. The French thought that. They're too wild over here to be priests. Anyway, so we got the thing started, and then in 1902, because of malaria and because of the here, so we, pastor in Covington, Father Kegel, he bought the property for us, and we bought it from him. And it used to be a plantation, you see, and the Hosmer plantation, the
Hosmer?
Hosmer, and in the cemetery across from City Hall in Covington, there's the only tomb. I think it has 5 levels. It's the only tomb in the whole cemetery that has that. That's the Hosmer. That's where they're all buried.
How many acres?
1,200. 1,200.
And you're on the Chifuncta?
Beaufort.
I meant,
Yeah. It's the western boundary and the southern boundary. And the rest, there's a creek on the west, no, it's the east. And then the boundary at the top is property boundary, a straight line across. And so we, the history is interesting.
Do y'all ever documented it, and written it down?
Yeah. You see, when I came here in 1930, they still had the pioneers here. The ones who the original 4 who came to Ponchatoula, over there. And that was one thing that I like to do. I like to ask the old timers, you get them started, and they'd talk all day,
Oh, Lord.
And so that's what I did. And some of them, 1 or 2 of them showed where all the buildings were, all that had burned down, and told me all about the whole history of the thing. And we have it pretty well documented.
Well, that's terrific. That's
I
great.
made a lot of tapes, and I was first Abbot. I knew Abbot Paul, and so I grew up with a healthy appreciation of the old guys. They were rough and tough, but they were good. You see, and anyway, so I'm glad I'm happy that you're writing this, because he deserves it, Father Baumann.
Yes, very definitely. And I've heard so many. I've taped other people, older people that have known him, when they were kids.
Yes.
Unfortunately, so many of them died, of course, and a lot of them, when you're a kid, you don't pay that much attention to details, but the attitude, the concept is there, and I think that's important, and that's what I'm trying to capture. And
I'm sure you do well.
well, if you don't mind, would like to go take a look at the grave
Yeah,
and get a picture of you by the grave
Fine.
with Father Baumann.
Yeah, sure.
So we can go do that. then.
Surely, yeah.
And I certainly appreciate you allowing me to take these and make
Sure.
reproductions of them. And
That's all right. I'm glad to do it for Father Ballet and for other reasons.
okay.
It's hard to believe, and I'm 80 now, and I just find it hard. I say he died at 65,
Yeah.
And to me, as a boy, he looked old,
Yeah.
And anyway,
But I think there's a lot of validity to what you said, and I kind of wondered, and because 65, even in 1940, was not that old,
No.
and particularly someone who had grown up with a sort of an active lifestyle, but that makes sense.
yeah, he had some
hard things to undergo those last 2 or